Ridley Scott's 1979 film Alien is a work of sci-fi horror set in space. It covers the experience of a crew of astronauts who encounter a homicidal alien. The creature, also called the Xenomorph, proceeds to hunt them down on their ship. The alien kills the crew over the course of the film until the sole survivor, Ripley, outsmarts it and launches it into space. After its success, the film developed a long franchise, spawning sequels, spin-offs, and video games. These explore the lore of the setting, the origins of the alien, and the legacy of Ripley. The franchise as a whole has been a commercial success. Despite this, the original film remains the most critically acclaimed and artistically significant part of the series. Aesthetically, Alien is strongly influenced by the works of H.R. Giger, an artist who combined elements of machines, living creatures, nihilism, mortality, and sexuality in a unique way. As we mentioned in our analysis of the film Nosferatu, films don't exist in a vacuum. They reflect the values and moralities of the cultures that produce them. With this perspective, we can review the film and get an insight into how civilization was changing in the 1970s. When we do this, we find that what Alien most reflects is the anxiety felt over the changing sexual ethics of the United States. In the 1960s, the United States went through the sexual revolution. This developed alongside the hippie movement, the counterculture, and the anti-war movement. From a traditional conservative Christian ethic, which valued monogamy and reserved sex for marriage, a new philosophy of free love and open relationships developed. Initially, there was resistance to move away from the traditional culture, but as the years proceeded, the new values became mainstream, and we shifted to our modern culture. Despite this, the transition involved a lot of anxiety and had to break down many historical taboos. The transition provoked people's fears and insecurities over what would happen if civilization opened itself up to unfettered sexuality. In many ways, this event was an inevitability, a long-term consequence of our applying the moral principles of Christianity to our culture in an increasingly equal way. This process of sexual liberation has continued into the present, as our modern social mores continue to change. It's this fact that makes our analysis of Alien worth doing, as it gives us insight into the current moral transformation of our culture. In a previous video, we talked about the two forces, Eros and Thanatos, which Freud said were the most powerful motivators of human behavior. Thus, we see the appeal of a horror film like Alien, as it articulates and explores these forces in human nature. One of the most iconic scenes in the film happens when the crew encounters the remains of the pilot, sometimes referred to as the space jockey, in his crashed ship. In the film, the crew is woken out of stasis so it can investigate an apparent distress call from his vessel. It's here in his ship where they first encounter the facehuggers, who penetrate and violate their hosts to birth an alien. Though the space jockey is shrouded in darkness, he appears to be a hominid figure. He's seated in a huge chair with an instrument in front of him that could be a telescope or a navigation tool. The figure's size, his position as a pilot, and his posture connote the intelligence of his species. Yet with his chest burst open from one of the creatures, he was still colonized by them. The pilot is one of the great mysteries of the Alien film. His fossilized remains cause us to reflect on our mortality, showing that even great intellect and scientific prowess can't survive death or victimization. Trying to warn others not to come to him so they don't repeat his fate, the crew misinterprets his beacon as a call for help. If the aliens represent our fear of unfettered sexuality, then we can interpret the pilot as showing that any class of being, even one with an impassible intellect, can be injured by the liberation of human sexuality. After discovering the pilot, the crew investigates the alien eggs. They do this unaware of their malevolence. Thus, we can view this as a theme of innocence being sexually violated for the first time. If we turn to the eponymous Alien, its design is strongly influenced by H.R. Giger. Like one of his paintings, it looks part mechanical and part biological. Agile and threatening, it combines a close-to-human intelligence with the nature of a large cat. Using craft and guile to navigate its environment, it deceives and terrorizes its victims. Embodying an amoral, nihilistic force in nature, the alien has an androgynous, almost feminine figure, combined with a head that's a phallic simulacrum. Combining the sources of sexual power of both men and women, the alien represents a selfish sexual predator. If we think about it from a social perspective, the alien represents society's fear of unfettered sexuality. Committing sexual assault and penetrating male characters, it also represents the fear of same-sex relationships. Through its penetration, the alien impregnates his hosts and colonizes their bodies. After the experience of sexual assault, the victims recover and seem to be fine, until their violators metastasize their bodies from within and burst out, entering the world through violent birth, the alien's victims becoming totally used for its benefit. The alien exploits our sexual fears and our feelings of disgust. It starts its life as a parasite, taking but not giving, an expression of society's fear of a new class of person, made possible through the sexual revolution. If we look at this portrait of Giger, the inspiration for the alien pilot the crew discovers, we can unpack the themes of the film. As we mentioned, Giger combines the biological with the mechanical. When he does this, he suggests living organisms are nothing more than complex machines, denying the spiritual and embracing nihilism. Taking advantage of human instincts, the front figure has hips that resemble a woman's, giving it a seductive quality. Meanwhile, the back of its head, pointed toward the back figure, is a phallic simulacrum. Another head on the right protrudes its tongue lustfully, while at the same time resembling a worm or a parasite. Finally, the front figure's ribs resemble a skeleton, making us think of our mortality. When we look at all this in its totality of effect, the work reduces us into sexualized machines, without a higher nature, destiny, or potential. Thus, Giger, and the alien film he inspired, is in the school of nihilism. In all, Alien represents our culture's anxiety about the sexual revolution. It exploits these in creating its antagonist, exploring the forces of sex and death in the human psyche.